Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg. I'm here today to do a Friday Reads video where I wrap up the week in reading and talk about any exciting bookish things that have happened during the week. We'll talk about the two books that I have finished, one of which caused heavy emotional devastation that has had a ripple effect throughout the rest of the week in the actual Friday Reads portion of this video. If you'd like to skip to that, there will be a link down below, as well as affiliate links to all of the books that I will be talking about. The big book news that happened this week is, of course, the Women's Prize, which announced its winners for fiction and nonfiction this week. And I did not think that I was going to be very excited about the Women's Prize this year, because although there were a lot of interesting books on the nonfiction side, I was feeling a little lackluster about the fiction side. But what an exciting end it turned out to be. Both of the winners seemed really great. I've read the fiction winner, not the nonfiction winner, but I finally feel like I might want to read the nonfiction book because I'd been holding off because I was afraid of crying. But what the ceremony kind of gave to me is the notion that it could be a book that restores faith in humanity, and I kind of need that right now. Speaking of which, shout out to the t-shirt that arrived this week. Very timely, as it turns out, because this is from the company Penzies. They're a spice company, really great company. We order from them a lot, and they also just happen to be great people. So they released a new t-shirt, and it says resist. So that is super timely, and on the day that this video publishes, if you want to go out and cause some good trouble, here's your encouragement. I don't know if Joel and I will be able to join any of the demonstrations or rallies that will be going on, because I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that we were trying out a new crafty thing, and the second class is tomorrow and it's all day. So the only window of time that we will have to get home, feed Teddy, walk Teddy, and then we're supposed to go to dinner at a friend's house is when the rallies will be happening. So we're going to try. We'll see if we can make it work, but it is what it is. Anyway, just had to mention the t-shirt since that came up. But yeah, I ended up being very excited. The speeches were so great. And it was wonderful talking about the Women's Prize with other people who were that excited about it. And it just, one of the fun things about having a channel and the community of people who are here, it's just been really great and enjoyable for me over the last 24 hours since the prize was announced and I'm filming this. So thank you. It was really nice. And another thank you, in addition to the one that I had to mention last week, because last week Stacey Payne had ordered a gift card through Montana Book Company and they mailed it to me. And then I've gotten two others since then. So thank you to Marsha Johansson and thank you to Danny Martin. He's That Bookish Bear on Instagram. And I have been able to shop a good amount at Montana Book Company because of that. And that gives me a great thrill because I haven't been spending a lot of money on new books this week. I've been doing a lot of trade at my local used bookstore. And I think I mentioned in a recent book haul that I've been relying on publishers a lot more than usual because, money's tight. That's the way things are. So it was nice to be able to actually bookshop in a bookstore again. And thank you to everyone who made that happen. So I'm trying to think, is there anything else to cover before we get to the actual Friday Reads portion of the video? I'm feeling a little scattered because it's just been a day unexpectedly. And oh, there was one other thing. So next week, I'm going to have to start trying to film ahead a bit because Joel and I are going to be going to New York to see family. And well, New York and Connecticut. And so I'm going to have to film some content ahead. So we'll have some stuff to post and we'll see what that is. I'll talk to Joel. Maybe we can, it's hard to do a monthly wrap up, but maybe we'll film something early. I don't know, to be determined. We'll have to see what we can get to. But I'm gonna make sure that there is at least some content for you while I'm gone. I don't think I'll really be able to film while we're gone, so I'll try to plan to have something in place of a Friday Reads, because let me check the calendar. I'm pretty sure we are around this weekend, and then I don't remember what day we leave. I'll figure it out. But I just want to warn you that I'll have things planned to post instead of a Friday Reads video. But there will be a time coming when you won't get a standard Friday Reads. It'll be a video different from that. So I'll figure that out. Again, I'm really scattered right now. So my brain's just not quite entirely functioning. And so I don't remember exactly when everything is going to be. But it'll be fine. Hi, this isn't actually editing Greg jumping in, but I had just finished filming and stopped recording and took the phone off of the stand and realized that I didn't mention something, which is that Joel and I have added stickers and totes to the merch store, which is always linked down below. So if you want to check those out, the link is down below. And I'll leave it at that. Enjoy the rest of the video. And with that, let's jump to the actual Friday Reads portion of this video and talk about the books that I finished first. And one of these books caused extreme emotional devastation that has had a ripple effect over the rest of the week. So let's start there, because I had finished Blackwater Lightship in time for my last Friday Reads video. And that was a bit of a heavy book. And I had mentioned that I was also listening to the audio of Dog Years by Mark Doty. And that it was a little heavy, but it was good. And I was intending to work my way through it slowly. But as the book progressed, the subject matter kept hitting a lot of personal spaces. And because Dog Years is very specifically a memoir about Mark Doty losing his partner to complications from AIDS and trying to distract himself and also ease the passing of his partner by bringing two dogs home for them to enjoy in his partner's last days. And then those dogs helped him through the grieving process of losing his partner. And he formed a very strong bond with both of them. And then, of course, as time passed, the dogs got older, became infirm, and he lost both of them as well. And if you follow along, you know, I lost two dogs over the last 3 years, and it was a very emotional and kind of upsetting process. And I've been working through a lot of grief over that and other things that have happened. But yeah, so this book triggered a lot of that stuff. Sometimes you get catharsis from emotional release from engaging with things that deal with the topic that's kind of bothering you, like grief. This felt like just ripping off a scab or poking a bruise and bringing everything back up to the surface. So it was a difficult read and lots of tears. And I didn't start a new print book because I was feeling stuck and I felt like I just wanted to get through Dog Years. Part of me did think about putting it down, but I, for some reason, felt like I wanted to get to the other side of it. So I did. So I didn't pick up a print book until I was done with Dog Years and sobbed. I barely managed to get through parts of it on Saturday and Sunday because I was feeling stuck and emotional. And then Monday, I just felt like I just need to get through this. I just need to power through. So I just binge listened to parts of it, sobbed my heart out, and it was a whole thing. So then it ended up, it's a good book, I would say, but because of the experience that I had, I'd say if losing a pet or a loved one is a trigger for you, maybe this isn't the book for you. Because I definitely didn't feel release from this book. I didn't feel catharsis. It just, as I said, kind of ripped things open again and made me feel all out of sorts for a couple of days. And even now, thinking about the book kind of brings stuff up. So you can tell I'm kind of avoiding talking about the book itself specifically because I don't want to reopen all of that stuff. So I wouldn't say I regret reading it, but it was hard. Definitely a difficult book for me to read. So I really appreciate the skill in writing of Mark Doty. He wrote a poetry collection called My Alexandria that I read before, and I'm someone who struggles a lot with poetry, so the fact that I enjoyed his poetry collection really speaks to me, and it makes him a writer who will always have a special place in my heart. But this was a difficult book for me, and I believe it would be for others. And Joel ended up listening to it on audio, and it was a difficult book for him as well. So, yeah. And let's leave that because then I had to pick what I was going to do in print and what I was going to do in audio next, because I hadn't started a print book because I just felt like I needed to get dog years off of my plate before I could do anything. Now, with the 1-2 punch of Blackwater Lightship, which on its own would have been fine, really it's dog years that caused this sort of emotional trauma and devastation. But on top of the Blackwater Lightship, it really felt like a lot. And what that means for my reading is that I had been really thinking that A Boy's Own Story by Edmund White was going to be my next print book, specifically because Edmund White, unfortunately, passed away this month. And this is one of the books that I really want to get off of my TBR or pile of possibilities. He's one of the authors I most specifically wanted to get to this Pride Month, Colm Tóibín being another, and I crossed him off with the Blackwater Lightship. So it just felt like a good time to pick this up. But having read those two serious books, I just felt like I couldn't even begin to engage with this book right now. So I thought I need something a little fun and fluffy and nice. And I had mentioned that I had a possibility last week with Francine's Spectacular Crash and Burn, because it sounds like it deals with some serious subject matter, but is also funny. Well, I started reading this book. I still have the bookmark in it, but it opens with the death of Francine's mother. So, didn't work. That didn't work. I think once I am past grief, trauma, emotional devastation, this will be much better. So maybe I need like one more book before I can dive back into this. But yeah, it just, as soon as it started getting into details about losing a mother, I was just like, oh gosh, I can't do this. I can't do this. So I tried one or two other books and was just really having a hard time finding one. If you follow along, you know, I'm a mood reader. So a lot of the time what will happen is I will start carrying around a pile of books, and I'll steadily like read a page or two of one, try the next one, and cycle through until I find books that are hitting the spot for what I need right now. And that's what I ended up doing, and I just not having any luck. So I thought to myself, I need some cinnamon bun joy right now. I think I need a gay romance. So the audio that I ended up picking up is one that I'm still working on. I'm almost halfway through at this point. I had to sit for like a day or 2 days without picking anything else up. Again, I was just emotionally devastated after finishing Dog Years on Monday. So I think Wednesday is the day that I actually managed to pick books up again. And it was part of a whole process of trying to find something that was going to fit this mood and help lift me back up so I could get up and go again. So let's talk about the print book that I ended up picking up first, because I actually finished it. And then we'll talk about the audio that I'm listening to, which will carry into next week. The print book that I settled on was Run Away With Me by Brian Selznick. Brian Selznick wrote The Invention of Hugo Cabret, Wonderstruck, and other books, but those are the only two that I have read. I really liked The Invention of Hugo Cabret, which, if I remember correctly, does not have any words in it. It's just illustrations. And Wonderstruck really plays with the concept of sound, because the protagonist is hard of hearing or deaf. I can't remember which. And I was less enthusiastic about that book than I was about The Invention of Hugo Cabret, but I wanted to try another book. I got this advanced reader's copy of this at that conference Joel and I went to at the end of September, beginning of October last year. And I've been waiting to get to it, and this felt like a good time to pick it up. So this is Brian Selznick's first YA book. The previous books that he wrote were more middle grade, and he talked at that conference about how his intention was to just write a book with text, unlike his previous ones, which are very heavily involve illustrations. You can see this illustration of the Pantheon, which one of the fun things about this book is that, I don't know if you know this about me, Joel and I went to Italy, and one of our favorite sights in Italy was the Pantheon. And I have a cousin who went to school in, or sort of like a graduate program in Italy, and she ended up staying there. She got a job, she met someone, she got married, and she lives in Rome now. So when Joel and I were going to be in Rome as part of our trip, she very kindly talked to us about what we wanted to see and do while we were in Rome. And she said, the only thing I'm going to force you to do is the Pantheon. It's my favorite thing in Rome. You need to do it. So we went, and we absolutely loved it. It was wonderful. So the fact that the Pantheon factors into this book so much did kind of appeal to me. And the fact that there are such beautiful illustrations of it as well really factors in. But anyway, getting back to my original point, he wanted to just do text. And I can't remember if it was his agent or his editor, but basically they said to him, people are going to expect drawings. You need to incorporate drawings. So what he did is he opens the book with some illustrations that set the scene and introduce a lot of the things that are going to be important in the story, because then you get into the actual book, and then you end with more illustrations. And I don't want to show you the ones from the back of the book, but so the book is literally bookended with illustrations. And I thought it was just okay. Now, it might be that I'm a little bit cranky this week, being a little bit honest, but I think a lot of the sort of crankiness is a sense of resistance to reading right now because of emotional devastation caused by dog years by Mark Doty. But I just didn't feel too into this book at all. And I really struggled to get going with it as well. So the beginning of the book, once you get to the text, feels magical. And I wasn't really prepared for that. And if you know me, you know, anything like supernatural tends not to, I just don't get along with it all that well. It's not that I will automatically dislike it. It's just a harder sell. So what this book had been billed as to me was we have a teenager who's 16 in Rome in 1985 or 1986, I believe. And he's there. His mother is working in a museum. So he has a lot of time to himself walking around Rome, and he runs into another teenage boy named Angelo. And they have this incredible summer. It's a coming of age story. It's a first love story. It's a queer book. And I was into that. What happens is he's wandering the city, and the way he meets Angelo is very mysterious. It implies magic. And then you meet Angelo, and he claims to be as old as Rome is and have a sort of supernatural understanding of the city. He claims that he doesn't really have a home. And it all seems very bizarre. And then it kind of turns back around, but the book had kind of already lost me at that point. So I just never really felt like I connected with this book. I do wonder if I would have had the same reaction if I had read this at a different point in time, when I wasn't dealing with the emotional ramifications of reading dog years, when I maybe had a little more patience. We'll never know, because I read it now, and that was ultimately my experience of this book. I just never felt like I connected with it at all, and that's kind of the way it went. But it was easy to read. It gave me a sense of completion that I managed to finish another book. So that part is good. On audio, I went with an audiobook that I had mentioned in my Pride Month Pile of Possibilities video that I did with Joel. Futbolista by Johnny Villa Garza. And this book is doing exactly what I needed it to do, more so than Run Away With Me, because whereas I had a difficult time connecting with Run Away With Me, I have pretty well gotten immersed immediately into Futbolista. The premise of Futbolista is that you have Gabby, who is a freshman in college. And although he is a freshman, he is very good at football, or soccer, as we call it in the United States. And he is so good that he is the starting goalie for his college's soccer team. And soccer is kind of his life. He's definitely a jock. And while he is in college and proving that he earned a place on the team, getting to know all of his teammates, he's at a party and he, due to circumstances, like somebody comes over and it's like, hey, I just lost a bet. Save me from having to take a flight of shots. In order to avoid that, I have to find somebody who's going to make out with me. Will you just do it? And he's like, yeah, fine. So he kisses this boy. Well, it's a great kiss. And then they run into each other and become friends. And he starts to question the premise. That's the premise of this book. He starts to question if he's as straight as he had previously thought. And a lot of the time when this comes up in a book, the author really stacks the deck to prove the point that either this person is, gay and needs to come out of the closet, or that they're bisexual. And what I like about this book is that it actually allows him to feel bisexual. It really feels like this is something that he is discovering about himself. And I've really actually enjoyed that. It allows him to be a sort of stereotypical jock and have sort of jock sensibilities. We've all known that really athletic person in high school and college or early 20s who is always wearing shorts that are a bit too short because they want to show off their thighs and how muscular they are. They wear a lot of tank tops or cut the sleeves off of a lot of their t-shirts and have some kind of like quirky sense of style. In this case, Gabby just obsessively wears Crocs every single day. Like short shorts, tank tops, and Crocs. He's that level of jock, but he's a nice guy. So yeah, and he, on the first day he's already been on campus because he has been starting practice with the rest of the team. But on the first day of school, when people are actually moving in, he meets a girl. He offers to help her, and they start a sexual relationship, almost like a friends with benefits. He toys with, he wants to get to know her more and actually go on a date with her, as this thing where he ends up at a frat party and kisses this other guy to help him get out of a bet, and then gets to know him. And again, like I said, an author would usually stack the deck. So, like this relationship with this girl doesn't actually mean anything because they want you to be rooting for the other thing. And Jenny Garza Villa allows the woman that he meets to be a complicated character, someone who Gabby is interested in. And it makes the story much more interesting because she's a fully fledged character who has wants and needs and desires of her own, and isn't just billed as like, okay, well, this is clearly not a good relationship. And that makes it really interesting because there's tension for Johnny, and you feel the difficulty of getting to know who you actually are. And I say that as somebody who's not bisexual. I have kind of always known which end of the spectrum I am on. And it took a journey for me to get to accepting it and, coming out as that. But I always appreciate getting stories from other people who are other parts of the spectrum. So that sense of confusion about figuring out who you are isn't entirely something that I had to deal with. So I really appreciate getting to go on that actual journey with him. And it has been really interesting. And it's also interesting because he comes from a Mexican-American family in Texas, Corpus Christi, to be specific. So he has to deal with prejudice within his sport as well, because occasionally people on the team will make cracks about like homophobic slurs. Not the one you're thinking of, but like there will be sort of digs, and it to the point where he has to worry about what would happen if he were, bisexual. What would they stand by him, or would they just let him go? Would he have to give up this sport that he loves as much as he does? And also, because he is Mexican, he has to worry about what it would mean for him in particular. Like, would anybody stand up for him, or would he just become somebody who's thrown to the curb? And I've really appreciated that. Now, I'm only about 45% through the audio because, as I said, it took me 2 days after finishing Dog Years to pick up another audiobook, and I just haven't fully caught up to it. But so there's room for this book to go downhill. And sometimes when a book like this is as long as this one is, I do wonder if it's going to start spinning its wheels. But what I have really appreciated about it so far is that it is taking its time to let you get to know Gabby, let you get to know Vale, the man that he ends up kissing, and Liana, I think is her name, the woman. I can't believe I forgot her name. That's so disrespectful. Since I said it, one of the things I was prizing about this book is that it lets her be a person. So my bad. As I said, my brain is mush today, so please don't hold it against me. But yeah, I have been enjoying this book. There's room for it to deteriorate or go downhill, but I feel pretty confident that this is going to be something that I'm enjoying. And it's just the trick right now, because unlike Run Away With Me, I feel connected to this book. I feel engaged in this book. I feel invested in seeing where it goes. And it's light and fluffy enough and cinnamon bun enough that it is giving me that sense of escape. It's rebuilding from the emotional devastation, like the ruin that was laid to me earlier in the week. And that is kind of exactly what I needed. So I finished Run Away With Me last night as I'm filming this. I need to pick my next print book. I confess I would like to get back to Francine's Spectacular Crash and Burn, but I think I still need to get away from grief as a topic in a book for right now. So I don't think that is one that I'm going to pick up. I have 2 sort of serious books, and I'm kind of wondering if I'm ready to dive into at least one of them. We shall see. So over this weekend, I might spend some time with these books and see if I'm ready. So the first is A Boy's Own Story. I've already kind of covered why this would be an important book for me to read this June. And I also got Sleeping Children by Anthony Passarone and translated by Frank Wynn from the library. I also have access to this on audio. So I'm also trying to decide if I might want to wait until I finish Futbolista to do this on audio. We'll see what I end up deciding to do. This is also a heavy book, and A Boy's Own Story doesn't involve death, but it is very much about someone coming of age in a time when it really wasn't a good thing or possible to come out. So there's heaviness, even though it doesn't necessarily deal with death. Not in this volume, at least. I think one of the later volumes of the trilogy does deal with the AIDS epidemic. So if I'm up for something heavier, I might read one of these, but to be determined. If I find that I really need more cinnamon bun joy in my life, on top of what Futbolista is doing for me, I do have what I think would be a spectacular option. And this is also thanks to someone who follows with the channel. Under the Mistletoe with You by Lizzie Huxley Jones. This was sent to me by a subscriber, and you know who you are, thank you. And they were at Gaze the Word. Sandy is the name of the person. They have a different username, and I never know how to pronounce the username, so I'm just going to say thank you, Sandy. So if I really need more cinnamon bun magic, this would be a great one. Because if you know me, you know I love a gay romance. You know I love Christmas. So a Christmas romance, yeah, can't do much better than that. So I'm thinking it might be this. But if I feel up to something serious, and honestly, I feel like I don't think I'm up to this right now with where my head is at. So maybe A Boy's Own Story, but maybe I need to do this first as a sort of lead in to that, so I can give myself more time to sort of emotionally recover, and we'll see how that goes. That is what I've been up to this week. We finished the season of Top Chef this week, and no spoilers, but I really enjoyed this season, despite the fact that a lot of my favorites were eliminated early on in the process, but my ultimate favorite made it to the finale, and I'm very happy with the way that things turned out. So that has been good. That's really what we've been watching. Evenings have kind of been taken up with our sort of crafty project tryout. Not trying to be mysterious about that, just I want to see how everything turns out before really talking about it. But so I haven't watched a movie in a while, but I would like to do that soon. So we'll see how everything goes. That's what I've been up to this week, what I've been reading, watching, and all that stuff. I'd love to hear what you've been up to, and let me know in the comment section down below. As always, I really appreciate your time. Cause some good trouble, and I will be back until next time. Happy reading.